Hello from St. Joseph College Seminary. Father Matthew Kauth here, and I wanted to give you all an update on the various proceedings over the summer. As you know, things quote-unquote quiet down here, which hasn't happened. It will happen a bit in July, but up until now we have had a flurry of activities, which is what this building, of course, was made for. And uppermost of those activities, of course, have been ordinations. This is, for us, the fulfillment of everything we set out to do so many years ago. We're just seeing these new classes come through in such a way that there's a wave happening now. Last year, of course, we had Father Aaron Huber, who's done a fantastic job in his first year in the priesthood. And this year, in terms of the priesthood, we have Father Rastrelli and Father Brock. Father Tronso was not a graduate of St. Joseph's, but certainly spent so much time here, both in terms of retreats as well as Spanish immersion. So we kind of take him as one of our own as well. And then, of course, we had 7 deacons, all of whom came through St. Joseph's. And so for me, it's just an incredible, incredible feeling to watch this take place, because what you're trying to do in the course of seminary life is to hand on to these men that which you yourself have received. And to some degree, all that you've tried to grab and find, and things that to some degree were kind of hidden from us, or the inheritance wasn't totally given, as I like to say. And so we've spent a lot of time as priests ourselves attempting to find all of the treasures of the church and make sure that our sons receive them all. You see it in these men as they get toward the end of seminary life. You're not coming to seminary to be a seminarian. And you get, to some degree, as much as you might love it here or at the St. Mary's in Cincinnati, you want to become a father, not just to remain a man. And the first time you hear that is different on a supernatural level than it is for someone on the natural level, because I would imagine, in most cases, a wife says to her husband, "You're a father." She informs him, right, that he's going to be a dad. And in this case, the bishop simply ordains you, and all of a sudden the faithful know by that sense, the sense of the faithful, that he has the power to generate life now. In baptism, in the Holy Eucharist, in confessions, etc. He has power to generate life. And they just naturally then call him Father. It's incredibly beautiful. And it's, for me as the rector, obviously extremely proud and happy for the Church of Charlotte, because you do feel as if you just had the draft and you got all these new players, and it lessens the load on the old players to some degree, especially those who can't hardly run anymore or catch a pass, for them to take over, and they do. Just this morning, I was marveling at the fact that I'm here and I had Mass for my family who's in town, but all the new priests were out there having Mass for the faithful. So I know one of the priests was having Mass for a group of sisters in Charlotte, and one of the other priests was offering Mass for the sisters here in Mount Holly. And I got a picture of the Mass at the convent, and of course, the priest is wearing my alb and my amice and my cincture and my chasuble, all my stuff that's over there in the chapel that I helped set up. And it's kind of like someone coming to their dad's closet and wearing all their stuff at some level. But it's great. It's like you're handing that on, and I watch them go. And to some degree, you feel, I suppose, the way in which maybe St. Joseph must have felt when he watched our Blessed Lord go out for the first time, or when Our Lady was in the upper room and they received the Holy Spirit and those apostles went out on mission, that you just kind of sit back and watch them do their work now. You gave them everything you could. Now it's their turn to use it. So when I speak about a flurry of activity, the month of June is packed. And the reason for which is the first thing we do when all the men come back is we gather them all here. We give them a week or two off, then we gather every seminarian back here so that all of them can spend some time together. And we have kind of retreat light, in the sense that, we have some parties at the barn and some relaxed time and lots of games and things like that, and just time to be together. And then bring in a speaker. We had Father David Standen, who's a great friend of the Diocese, a priest from England, that was here giving our men a retreat. And when I say retreat light, it's because in the morning we're in silence and we have talks all day and conferences, and and confessions and prayer, lots of prayer time. And then by evening tide, we just sort of let them, as it were, relax and spend some time together. So to build up those fraternal bonds. We move from the seminary and retreat right into Spanish immersion. So some of you might know that La Señora Garmia and several other persons help with putting on our own Spanish immersion here. So all of our men who move from college seminary to theology, every summer they're here for over a week, just immersed in Spanish. And that's a high priority for us, of course, because so many of our parishes have Hispanic communities. And so our men usually come out by their fourth year of theology quite fluent in Spanish with these various programs we put on. Of course, they have Spanish for 2 years as well at the major seminary. So it's been a very successful program, but again, also one of those ways in which the theologians can spend some time together, and there's an awful lot of frivolity, and they put on these skits, and I wish you could all see it. Well, maybe someday we should just send them out because they're hilarious, especially for those of you who speak Spanish. And then after Spanish immersion, we move right into Quo Vadis, that's retreat that we have for young men in the sort of high school range. And once again, we had incredible numbers, and we were kind of filled to the gills because the Abbey, who hosts us every year, thankfully and graciously, they're doing some construction on their dorms, and so we had a limited number that could stay there. So we had a number of campers here instead. We had a bunch there, but also a bunch here, busing them in and out every morning and evening. And we had them all here for a day just to be at the seminary, to experience the seminary, and a big barbecue and capture the flag. And I was standing upstairs, and there's 100 boys running around at top speed, and thankfully the heat wasn't too bad, but I just thought to myself, it looks like, from the tower, it looks like just this sea of boys, and they're everywhere, up in trees and running through gullies and doing what boys do, which is expending massive amounts of energy and then eating massive amounts of food to replenish the energy. So we had a cookout for them at the barn, which was great. And finally, we have, of course, Duc in Altum, which is the female counterpart to Quo Vadis. And so our own sisters, the Daughters of the Virgin Mother, put on this retreat for girls at the Abbey, and that's taking place this upcoming week. And they're able to bring in a lot of different religious communities as well to help them. So there's, I think, 5 different congregations that have come just to assist our women in the diocese, our young women in the diocese, to discern a possible vocation to the consecrated life. And lastly, as I think many of you know, we have been able to obtain a new Magister Capelle who just arrived actually a couple days ago. And so he and his wife and his 2 beautiful children have a place that's only about 4 miles from here, and they will be joining us immediately. And so I'm actually having Andrew work with some of our seminarians that have been through the program for many years and are very skilled at music. In particular, Colby Murray and some others, that they can kind of walk Andrew through what we have done, and then of course he can bring his expertise and skills and knowledge of the craft, both to them, but also to, of course, the whole seminary community. So extremely excited to have him here and to be able to take our choir and our singing abilities to that sort of next level in terms of worship and praise of Almighty God. And I gotta say that I'm very grateful for the men, as it was such a shock to us, of course, and a difficulty last year, as I mentioned. But they stepped up and they kept the program going when we had no one to assist. Mrs. Savoy courageously helped them through the year and would have some classes with them and some instruction, but a lot of it fell on their shoulders, and they did a fantastic job, and I no doubt made Tom proud. And we're also making preparations, of course, for our new incoming class, which is going to be slightly different this year, insofar as the Church has instructed us to slightly alter the way we do formation at this stage in seminary. And thankfully, with that alteration of legislation, reading it through, I realized that blessedly, most of the things the Church is asking us to do, we were already doing. Because we wanted to put a premium on this extraction of a man from the world, from social media, from the internet, from his phone. We had already done all of that. So the men had already had a big fast from media in that sense. And we put a premium, of course, as well on prayer, on mentoring, on time in silence, etc. All those things are the new program for priestly formation, which is the document the Church uses to kind of govern her seminaries. Part of that is what they call now the propaedeutic year, which is a Greek word that just means before you enter in kind of thing, before you enter into this serious study. And so we're detaching to some degree the incoming class from their academic progress. They will take some classes, but those classes are going to be geared to making sure the foundation is very solid. So things more like the catechism, classes on the Psalms that they'll pray every day, class on prayer, to be able to immerse them in those first steps of becoming a disciple of Jesus Christ. And certainly they have a number of those things from their families from which they come, etc. But it's a way to almost have a quasi-novitiate. You pull them away from the world, and they really have 12 months of a program. It's no longer just the same program as everyone else that's tied to the academic schedule, and then they go home for their breaks. In this case, the men are going to be here, and that's going to require a little bit different kind of mentorship. And so one of the things that the Church instructs seminaries to do is to have a priest that's just dedicated to mentoring the first-year men. And so the bishop has assigned Father Brian Becker, who is the vocation promoter, to come to the seminary, to live with the men, and to be that mentor. And so since they're detached from the normal academic progression of seminary life, we have a lot of freedom to be able to do different things with them. One of the things that we plan on doing, of course, is making sure they're visiting all the different parishes in the diocese with Father Becker. They're going out and meeting the people that they hope to one day serve. They're celebrating the Holy Mass with them, assisting at Mass, that they're going to places for retreats when they can put an emphasis and a focus on proper discernment, all the things that the program for priestly formation is asking us to do. And perhaps even a very interesting summer excursion, which I will fill you in on later if it comes to pass. So the new class is called Hotel Class because, of course, we use all those military cohort names, and it's not a very felicitous name, I suppose, except for the fact that there's 8 of them. It seems like every year we have 8 new guys, so we can call them the Super 8. While our emphasis, of course, is on the men that are being built up into good characters and priests, we still have to take care of the actual building itself that assists them in that formation. And so we had a number of construction projects going on, as always. I mentioned the pig pen. We finished out some sheds in the back. We drilled for a proper well because, as you might imagine, the amount of irrigation that needs to take place here to keep anything green is incredible because we have several acres, of course, of land that is developed. And so making sure that gets irrigated is too expensive to do. So we put in a well, which doesn't quite get us all the water that we need. We're almost finished with it. But the ultimate goal is to have that well feed our runoff system. Our entire campus gets, all the water runoff gets fed into a certain location that gets shot out into the creek. And I want to capture all that water and not waste it, but use it to irrigate the land here. So we're going to put in a pond in that the well water is going to go to assist the pond and the runoff water, et cetera. So trying to be a bit self-sustaining here. But of course, the biggest question I think perhaps people would be asking about construction is the chapel project. And we continue to develop the plans. They've come along beautifully. I'm extremely excited about the plans as they've developed. And in terms of the support that we've had for it, it's been tremendous. We haven't, as you know, because you've not been asked, we haven't had a big ask, a universal ask for the chapel project. We've just been meeting with individuals, interested people, because we have such a good, strong support and family now that we've just been going to one after another, talking to them about the plans and seeing how God moves their hearts. And so thankfully, we have done tremendously well. As you know, the goal that we set was 22 million. And with a large portion of that, 8 million coming from the diocese itself, based upon some endowments and some land sale that we had. their investment in this future project, because it's not just a chapel. It's a place for people to gather. It's a place where priests can bring their parishioners to come and have Mass, and then fold out into an area, common areas and places for talks and lunch and things like that. Some other offices and some other supporting buildings for the seminary work here. But this project that we're doing is going to open it up to all the faithful. That's its purpose. And I think the response has been tremendous. So in that $22 million project, we're at 19.5 already. Now we need several million to go, be able to put a shovel in the ground. And we're hoping to have that wrapped up around Christmas time, which means we can be prepared to put a shovel in the ground this spring, maybe even on the Feast of St. Joseph. So that's about it for our summer update, but I do want to leave with just this one consideration. When we had the ordinations at St. Mark's, I think I knew everyone that was there. And I was so enthused and motivated by what I saw, because it's not just about the person who is ordaining, or the priests who are there, or the religious that are in attendance. It's everyone that's in those pews. Because I know their stories for the most part, and I know their involvement in the lives of these seminarians. And I was saying to someone after the Mass, because of course we're all filled with joy and excitement and emotion, etc. I said to her, I said, "Isn't it amazing what we've built?" And she said, "You know, Father, what you just said is true. Because you could say, because you're the point person, or you designed this or that you built this. But you didn't build it. We built this. And it's true. How many people have been supporting those vocations for so long in those pews? How many people have not just given money, but the kind of word of encouragement that the men need to pursue their vocations? How many people have been longing and yearning for good and holy priests? And they're all there to see the fruit of it, to enjoy it, to celebrate it. It was so infectious, because what she said is right. We built this thing. And it takes everyone to be able to sustain it. So to all of you who have encouraged our young men, who have prayed for them, who have sacrificed for them, and made this possible, you should celebrate and rejoice, because God has been faithful and He has sent us amazing, good young priests. God bless you.